The Meanest Doll in the World by Anne Martin and Laura Goodwin. Chapter 11. The Return. For several more hours, Annabelle, Tiffany, and Callie's dolls sat quietly in BJ's room. They saw no sign of Mean Mimi and no signs of Techno Man. Pretty soon, we'll have to go back to Callie's room, said Melody, standing and stretching. Mimi is going to be madder than a hornet, but once Callie comes home, she won't be able to do anything to us. So she behaves herself when Callie's around? Asked Annabelle. Well, mostly, said Melody, and Annabelle felt fear ripple through her. How much damage could Mimi cause? What about Techno Man? Asked Tiffany. Where do you think he was? I'm not sure, replied Melody. This makes me nervous. Techno Man was humiliated. He was embarrassed. So I guess he's off sulking. He's never done that before. I hope he has the sense to return before BJ and Callie do. Whose room does he belong in? Annabelle wanted to know. BJ's. You see that bucket in the corner? That's where the action figures are kept. Although I wonder if Techno Man will stay there now, since we know he isn't an action figure after all. The dolls sat and talked until finally Waterfall said, I think we should go. She looked at Annabelle and Tiffany. We hate to leave you, but we want to be ready when Callie comes home. That's okay. We should get back in the backpack anyway, replied Tiffany. Beth let out a loud sigh. Back to Mimi Land. The dolls stood up. They hugged each other and called goodbye. When we get home, Annabelle said, we're going to tell our parents about Mean Mimi. She really is a menace. Maybe they'll have some ideas about what to do. It must be nice to have grown-up dolls around, said Penny. It is, Annabelle replied. Mostly. The Troll Twins, the PJ Party Pals, the Cutouts, the Sandra Doll, and the Sleeping Billy left the room. Okay, said Tiffany. Into the backpack? Into the backpack, said Annabelle. She and Tiffany waded through the toys and papers on the floor, and Annabelle prayed were now exactly in the same spots in which they had been before BJ left on Friday. Then they stood before the backpack and looked at it. Like Kate's, there was one large main compartment and several smaller zippered ones on the outside. Where should we hide? Asked Tiffany. The big compartment, said Annabelle promptly. We'll stay at the bottom like we did when we were in Kate's. And so Annabelle and Tiffany spent a long night at the bottom of BJ's backpack. They crawled under some papers and an old woolen glove, and they listened. They listened to the sound of BJ's family returning home late that afternoon. They listened to voices calling, and they thought they now knew whose was BJ's and whose was Callie's and whose were their parents. They listened especially hard for any signs that the humans thought things were not quite right. But they heard nothing disturbing. Later, much later, they listened to nighttime sounds, and they heard many that were familiar to them. The hum of the refrigerator, clocks ticking, floors creaking. They heard a scrabbling sound too, and they thought maybe BJ's house had mice, which upset Annabelle. But the scrabbling stopped and no mice jumped into the backpack. So Annabelle stopped worrying and thought instead about the wonderful homecoming they would soon have. By morning, a new set of worries accompanied Annabelle. What if BJ didn't take his backpack to school? Would she and Tiffany have time to climb out of the pack and find something else in which to hide? What if BJ did take his backpack, but he went searching for his glove and found Annabelle and Tiffany instead? What if the girls got to school safely, but Kate hadn't brought her backpack that day? And what if they made it all the way back to the Palmer's house only to discover that their absence had been noted and that Kate and Nora had been searching for them and now the humans were suspicious? But Annabelle's worries were for nothing. BJ did pick up the backpack and take it to school. During a quiet moment that morning, the girls managed to slip out of it, drop to the floor, find Kate's pack. This time, they made certain it was hers and climb into it. At the end of the day, the bell rang, and presently Annabelle heard Kate's voice as she hoisted the backpack from its shelf and slid her arms through the straps. 20 minutes later, Annabelle and Tiffany were back in the Palmer's house on Weatherby Lane. Kate set the backpack on the kitchen floor while she ate a snack with Nora and Grandma Catherine. Then she carried the pack upstairs to her room and dropped it on her bed. A few minutes later, Annabelle heard footsteps leave the room, then Kate calling, "Grandma Catherine, can I go over to Ayana's house?" When the dolls heard only silence for the next few minutes, they could wait no longer. "Now?" Annabelle whispered to Tiffany. "Now." Annabelle could tell that Tiffany was grinning. "You should probably come to my house," said Annabelle as she stood up. You shouldn't risk being seen in the Palmer's hallway. It's dangerous enough to run across Kate's room at this time of the day." "That's okay. I'll go back to my house tonight." The dolls scrambled out of the pack and crawled down Kate's bedspread to the floor. They dashed across the room into the step stool, and they stood at the bottom of it and called softly, "Hello? Anybody home?" For a moment, they heard nothing. Then a voice replied, "Annabelle? Tiffany? Is that you?" "Yes, it's us. It's really us." Annabelle cried softly. Cautiously, Mama and Papa appeared at the front of the dollhouse. Mama glanced around Kate's room, checking to make sure no humans were in sight. To Annabelle's surprise, Mom Funcraft appeared next to Papa. "So Nora's been playing in Kate's room again," thought Annabelle. "That was probably a good thing." "Oh, oh dear," said Mama, looking faint. "We were afraid we might never see you again. Are you all right? Are you really all right?" "Yes, we're fine," replied Annabelle. "Hi, honey," Mom Funcraft called to Tiffany. "Did you have fun?" "Well, my land!" exclaimed Nanny, peering over Mama's shoulder. "What? Where?" Uncle Doll sputtered. And Auntie Sarah said, "There you are, girls. Good heavens, come on up here." Annabelle and Tiffany scrambled up the steps as fast as they were able. A few minutes later, Annabelle felt herself caught up in a flurry of hugs, wrapped in her mother's arms, then her father's, then Auntie Sarah's, then Uncle Doll's, then Nanny's and Mom Funcroft's, then Bobby's, and finally even baby Betsy as she reached out from her spot on the floor. "Where on earth have you been?" asked Mama, motioning the dolls to move to the back of the house. "Why, they've been to school, I presume," said Auntie Sarah. "Isn't that right, girls?" "Yes, and," Annabelle started to reply. "My, what an adventure," said Mom Funcraft. "But why didn't you come back on Thursday?" asked Papa. "Kate brought her pack home with her. We saw her." Annabelle heard a hint of annoyance in his voice. Tiffany must have heard it too, because she said, "We tried to come home, and we really did, but we had gotten out of Kate's pack in school, and then we couldn't return in time." "You got out of the pack?" repeated Mama in alarm. "Why?" And Uncle Doll said, "You ran around in a big place like school in front of all those humans?" Annabelle elbowed Tiffany, realizing they should have spent some of the hours stuck in BJ's backpack discussing what they were going to tell their parents. Tiffany abruptly stopped speaking, but Auntie Sarah said, "Oh, school. Just think, to be in an actual school. My, my, my." "Sarah," said Uncle Doll sharply, "don't encourage them." "Oh, for heaven's sakes, I'm sure they were careful. What a wonderful opportunity for an exploration of some great magnitude, I might add. I'll say, agreed Mom Funcraft. We were very careful, said Annabelle meekly. Very careful, added Tiffany. Auntie Sarah was rubbing her hands together with relish. All right, so you were stuck in school on Thursday night. Then what happened? What happened on Friday? You really are not going to believe it, said Tiffany. What? Cried Auntie Sarah and Mom Funcraft at the same time. Annabelle had been trying to figure out just what to say and what not to say in order to stay out of trouble. But now she had a feeling that with Auntie Sarah and Mom Funcraft on their side, she and Tiffany weren't going to be in that much trouble anyway. Okay, on Friday, said Tiffany, we waited for just the right moment to return to Kate's backpack. Together, Tiffany and Annabelle began to tell the story of their adventure. They told of accidentally climbing into BJ's backpack, of peering out of the pack later and realizing they were in the wrong house, of meeting their new friends, of mean Mimi, and of the terrible trouble they thought Dollkind might now be in. They told the story in turns. Tiffany would speak until she left something out. Then Annabelle would jump in. Annabelle would speak until she left something out. Then Tiffany would jump in. When they finished their story, the other dolls were speechless. They looked both astonished and frightened. Mama and Papa clutched each other, and Uncle Doll fanned himself with a handkerchief. All my life I've been afraid of something like this, he said with a small moan. Imagine such a menace so nearby, whispered Nanny. Mama, said Annabelle, Papa, do you think there's any way we can help Melody and Waterfall and the other dolls at BJ's? They're in trouble. Huge trouble, added Tiffany. And so are we. So are dolls everywhere, said Annabelle. The grown-ups looked at one another. Annabelle, Mama said, but she was interrupted by a noise from across the room. All the dolls jumped. Places, everyone, hissed Papa. Annabelle and Tiffany hide. Oh, there's no need for that, a voice called. It's just me. As Annabelle and the others watched, one of the small compartments on Kate's backpack opened, and a doll dressed in lavender climbed out and scurried down the bed and began to cross the floor toward the dollhouse. It was Mean Mimi.